Hello everyone. Today we will be learning about mobile photo editing using Snapseed. Snapseed is a brilliant app which provides us with basic photo editing features and the advanced photo editing features as well. So what do we mean by advanced? Something like spot editing, double exposure, healing, which usually are found in advanced photograph editing apps like Lightroom, Photoshop, and sorts. But today we will be concentrating more on our basic editing features. So let me give you a brief overview of why we do photo editing and what is the difference between photo editing and photo manipulation. Photo editing is basically correcting whatever we couldn't capture in the live camera, right? So when we're clicking something, so there might be a light difference, or you could not control the right light setup, or maybe your contrast you need to enhance, maybe like you wanted to add more pop to the image. So all these are photo editing corrections, whereas photo manipulation is something where you go ahead and use apps where you completely change the way you look or the photograph is looking, add additional overlaps of graphics or probably some effects. That is photo manipulating. And what I would recommend usually in my classes is concentrate as much as possible on whatever you're capturing, you capture it right in the first row. And if there is something which you cannot control, that can be edited, and that's what is post-processing for photo editing. I would not recommend photo manipulation unless you are creating movie posters or some sort of a social media post with a lot of graphics included for some promotion. So here, let's take a look on how do we use Snapseed for our basic photo editing. Now, what you're seeing on screen is my tutorials folder where I have 3 example photographs which range from landscape to pet portrait. So let's take the pet portrait and see what the Snapseed app offers us, right? So as you see that there's a bottom ribbon which is giving us the features of presets. These presets are nothing but something which the Snapseed creators have already created for you, and you can readily use one of them to enhance your image so that you don't really spend time in correcting granularities. That is if you are in a hurry, but I would say that explore editing the granularities as well. Let's see one of the presets. Like one of the major presets which I keep using whenever I edit is pop or accentuate, right? So now you can see the difference when I'm using them. Say pop is little milder, whereas accentuate is having more structure, sharpness and saturation. So let's see if we can do the same effect using our granular controls, right? When we are talking about the granular controls, click on tools and you will get a panel of features which Snapseed offers. And I would bifurcate them into basic and advanced. The top row usually is the basic editing features, and all the rows below are your advanced features. So the reason why I'm saying the top row is the basic editing is these are available in any photo editing app, right? The basic color tuning or exposure tuning. So let's explore the first one. And usually whenever you're doing a photo editing, you really, if you can contain your edits to just exposure and color control, that would make you a better photographer, and it will also give you the thrill of clicking the image right. So usually you play around with your tune image. So if you look at the Tune image, the screen is pretty much straightforward. You have your image, then you have your bottom ribbon where you can see what are the controls which are available to you. So your brightness, contrast, saturation, ambiance, and highlights and shadows and warmth. So the top three are mostly related to light, so shadows and color pops, whereas the bottom three are more to do with the color temperature and your exposure levels of highlights and shadows, right? So usually if you look at this image, it is having a decent right exposure level, so I would not touch anything around brightness. But what I would like to do is, because it's a pet portrait and it's got fur, so I would like to see if I can play around with my contrast a bit. So increasing or decreasing the contrast or any of the controls is majorly around just sliding your finger on screen either to the right or to the left, and you can see the difference in the image as I'm sliding the contrast. I do not want too much contrast as well, so I'll just leave it at 7, and then I'll choose the next one, which is maybe the temperature or the warmth. So I think this is good. So if I would go on to the extreme left side, you can see the image getting colder, but since it's a warm tone, which is what I'm looking for, I will keep it at on the positive 11 side. I think I'm satisfied with this. Should I go for saturation? Because that's something which will pop the fur color. I think at this moment the fur looks okay, but let's see what will the saturation do. Yep, I think it's adding to the effect. So I think positive 22 for saturation is good, and this should be the basic correction you should be doing in your images for post-processing or photo editing. If you are going beyond this, that means you have some specific need or specific output you're looking for. Right? Now, like I said, the top row is still basic editing features, so let's go and explore the details. So in details, you are playing around with the sharpness of image and the structure of image. So let's talk a little bit about the structure. So what do you mean by structure? So structure is the detail of, or the texture. Like say for example, in this picture we have a pet. So if you want to enhance the structure of the fur or texture of the fur, or make it like bump up a little bit, so that is possible. And even though this counts as a little bit of an intermediate to advanced feature, but Snapseed provides it right in the basic ones. So if you look at, if I'm increasing the structure, you can see near the chin of the pet that the fur texture is popping out and the image is looking much better. So there is a small little feature which they have tucked in on the top right corner if you look at it. So this little feature here is what they gave. Sorry. So it usually works, but I'm sorry about that. But the next feature in the detail section is the sharpening. So you increase the sharpening, and if you increase it too much, like I did just now, you might get noise in your picture, which you don't want. So increase it to a decent amount so that your picture is like pretty clear. So I think this image looks okay. So now let's explore the other options. So you have your white balance, usually, which talks about your color temperature, which we already did set to warmth. You can play around with here also, like probably it's sort of an overall warmth, you can say. Maybe I would like to use a little bit, so it enhances my picture a little more. Then there is your tint. So usually tint is a spectrum from greenish to pinkish. So let's see how that pans out for your images. So if you like go for the extreme left, it's a complete green hue overlapping your image, and if you go to the extreme right, it's pink hue which is overlapping the image. Usually if you add a little bit of a pink, that will enhance the skin tones. So this is a quick tip. So whenever you're editing portraits, or like say if you're editing anything related to pets, so they do have pink skin spots. If you look at this particular guy, he has a pinkish spot on his chin. So adding this tint gets that pinkish tone out, and it also adds a little bit of I would say a lovely feeling to the picture overall. Now if you look at the bottom ribbon here, so they have 3 more items. So one is your auto white balance, that is AW, and then you have your selection for temperature or tint. Then there is a very useful feature which Snapseed provides, which is your dropper. So if you look at it, you just move it around, and wherever the arrow mark is, so it just points out, or this particular arrow mark as in like not the plus symbol but the crosshairs, but the arrow around this particular pointer. So it picks up that area and it tries to get that tone of the color. So if you look at the circle which is highlighted with the shade of the brown under the eye, and you can add the overall picture's tone in that particular shade itself, which I don't want. So I'll just stick to my usual settings which I did manually, and so I like enhance this a little bit. So here you go. So temperature correction. So do we require anything else? So usually another basic photo editing feature or post-processing feature or concept which we use is cropping. Cropping is useful when, say for example, most of the times photographers suffer from this whole natural tilt to the side. So you might want to change that. So either you can straighten your image, or you can just close crop to say probably this guy here, right? So if I want to do it, but I think I framed it well, so I think I will not go ahead and use the crop feature. Curves I would not suggest to use in your basic editing, but basically it is again to do with your image fading or having spots where you want to enhance either RGB or the pop of those colors again. So it's basically color related, again not really important when you're doing basic photo editing itself. So I think I'm satisfied with this image. And if you look at the other features which people usually use extensively are lens blur and vignette, but I'm not a very big fan. So usually the lens blur I would try to capture from my phone itself. As you can see, there's a good natural transition in the lens blur which I'm using in this image, which automatically my phone captured. So a lot of phones have the advanced, not the portrait mode, but the advanced manual mode, or even the lenses for that matter. They give you a natural transition of lens blur, or which is actually a lens defect, but it adds to your image. So I think I'm okay with this image. So let's export it. Now the export options in Snapseed. So again, there are a bunch of them. You can directly share the image onto any of your other applications like WhatsApp or Instagram, or you can save a copy of this particular image onto your phone, and you can export with the difference in size as well, or you can export it to a particular folder. I don't want to spend too much time there because most of my images get stored on my phone. Anyways, I'll share it or like say sort it out later. So I will just say save. The photo is saved. You can view it from here. So a quick feature recap. So we have used the basic editing features from tune image to your white balance settings. So and as you can see here, there are top 3 icons. So this particular one with your undo mark with the edits. So the flexibility Snapseed gives you is you can see what are the edits you have made. So you have whatever changes you have made, and if you don't want any particular edit, which is say second or third edit you did, and you can go ahead and you can delete it, or you can just make enhancements to that edit itself. So that flexibility is there. It's very similar to what layers in Photoshop does, right? And you can go back and see how the original image looked, how the second edit looks, third enhancement, fourth enhancement, and gradually what happened as a final result. So we can go ahead and view those details. There is the set of settings and tutorials via Snapseed itself. I would recommend explore that. They are very informative and they are very useful when you are doing your mobile photo editing. So that covers the basic photo editing features of Snapseed. Go ahead and try it out on your next mobile click, and do stay tuned in for more tutorials from Dreamers Iris. We will be posting more on this particular YouTube channel.